The, the other thing I can't help but think of as a no-no, as the Gospels were being written, the present canonicals, are you know, you might say, well, given historical context, who are you to say that a teaching like let he who is without sin cast the first stone, why would that have been thought any more or less realistic than a miracle story? And to that I will say, well, if you've copied it out of pagan stories, and the only response that I've heard to this from Christians has been that the devil was to have learnt of God's plan to send Jesus, all of which is just Johannian. To say that Jesus stole a donkey or horse shows immediately that he opposed and rebelled against some aspects of the Mosaic Code. Now, even the one rule that's saying don't steal a horse is also saying don't steal a manservant, a maidservant, and Jesus didn't do any of that. He just possibly stole a horse. So, with that opposition to the Mosaic Code demonstrated, and the Mosaic Code clearly coming after the Genesis account of origins, and Jesus teaching this poetry about the Son of Man to former fellow conquered Jews, you know, it reads like chained slaves together, just trying to talk to one another about how to survive, really. And then because there was wisdom found in what he had to say, that it gets accused of owning a kingdom. No, so I don't think he believed in Genesis, but I also don't think that the devil decided to get the DeLorean off Michael J. Fox and travel back in time in order to tell the pagan religions to write miracle stories about Dionysus turning water into wine 1500 years before Jesus was born, so that they could say Jesus was the original turner of water into wine, not Dionysus, the Greek god Dionysus. Now Dionysus had that story first, so plagiarism, that's proof of plagiarism, insertive plagiarism. And if that happens with miracle stories but not teachings in later Gospels, then is it not possible that certain teachings in later Gospels bore some truth? You might say, looking at these datings, well, what likelihood if he's killed in 33 CE are his words to be remembered all the way through to 95 AD? And that's an easy answer. They didn't have iPods, they didn't have the iPod 3, they didn't have the iPod 4, they didn't have the iPod 2, they didn't have the iPod 1, they didn't have computers, most people didn't have access to literature. So words were like getting drugs back then, really. And that absolutely is why they could survive and endure for decades. So where we can rule out miracle stories, both on the fact that science has proved them impossible since, we can rule out on the basis of plagiarism that they weren't inserted later. But we can't say the same for various teachings appearing in later Gospels, unless there's a pagan, unless there are pagan texts with these moral stories being taught prior to the birth of Jesus of Nazareth.